Hey there, welcome back. Today, we're going deep into the compound effect by Darren Hardy.
Oh, yeah?
Ever feel like you're putting in the work, but not seeing like big changes? This book tackles that head on. It's all about how those small, everyday choices, they can snowball into massive results over time.
Right.
And we're not just talking money here. This applies to your relationships, your health, basically every part of your life.
Yeah, it's interesting. What's really intriguing about this book is that it doesn't offer like a magic overnight success formula, but rather explores this often overlooked power of consistent small actions.
Right.
Think of it like building a tower, brick by brick.
Okay.
Each choice, each action is another brick in that tower.
I like that. Okay, so how do we get started building this tower of success? One of the first things that really grabbed my attention was the magic penny analogy. You know, the one where you choose between $3 million right now or a penny that doubles every day for 31 days.
Ah, yes. The classic choice. That highlights the counterintuitive nature of compounding. Initially, that doubling penny seems insignificant, almost laughable compared to the instant gratification of a hefty sum.
Right. I mean, who wouldn't be tempted by like $3 million up front?
Yeah.
But I bet most people listening have experienced that, like giving up too soon, feeling we ditch a diet or a project or a new skill.
Yeah.
Because we're not seeing those Instagram-worthy results instantly.
Exactly. And that's where Hardy's analogy gets interesting. He takes us through the penny's growth. Day 5, 16 cents. Not very impressive. Day 10, you're looking at just over $5. That $3 million's looking pretty good right about now, isn't it?
You bet. But then Hardy throws a curveball. On day 20, the penny hits a little over $5,000. Still far cry from $3 million. Then boom, day 31. The penny has ballooned to over $10 million.
Wow. It's a powerful illustration of the concept of exponential growth. The gains seem minuscule at first, almost invisible, but with consistent doubling, the growth explodes dramatically. And it's not just some abstract concept. Research on habit formation shows a similar pattern. Small changes repeated consistently lead to significant and lasting results.
So how do we translate this magic penny wisdom to our own lives? Hardy then introduces us to the story of these three friends, Larry, Scott, and Brad. They're all in similar positions in life, but Scott decides to make a few tiny changes, like reading 10 pages a day, swapping soda for water, taking a short walk each evening, things anyone could easily incorporate, right?
Precisely. And that's the point. Scott isn't undergoing some radical transformation. He's simply making a few small adjustments. It's not about making these big sweeping changes that you can't stick with, but rather small, consistent actions that compound over time.
So what happens to these guys after a couple of years?
Well, after 25 months, things start to shift. Scott's lost some weight, seems happier, his career's picking up. Brad, on the other hand, hasn't noticed much change. But then Hardy fast forwards to the 31-month mark. The differences are staggering.
Yeah, it really is a wow moment. Scott has lost a significant amount of weight, earned a promotion, and his marriage is thriving. Meanwhile, Brad, who didn't make any changes, is unhappy with his job, his marriage is strained, and he's struggling with his health. All this from just tiny choices adding up over time.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder that every decision, no matter how small, has consequences. We're constantly making choices. And those choices, especially the ones we repeat day after day, are shaping our future, whether we realize it or not.
So you're saying that even grabbing that extra cookie or hitting the snooze button can have long-term consequences. It seems a bit dramatic.
Well, think about it this way. If you overspend by just $10 a day, that's over $3,000 a year. Over a decade, that's $30,000. That could have been invested or used to reach a financial goal.
Yeah. That puts things in perspective. It's like Hardy says, small, smart choices plus consistency plus time, radical difference. So those little choices really are the building blocks of our future selves, huh?
Exactly. And to ensure those choices are moving us in the right direction, Hardy emphasizes the often dreaded concept of tracking.
Uh-oh. Tracking. I have a feeling a lot of listeners just cringed a bit. It's not exactly the most glamorous part of personal development.
No, it's not always fun, but it's crucial. Hardy shares this anecdote about being hit with a hefty tax bill because he wasn't diligently tracking his spending, even though he was making good money.
Whoa. Even Darren Hardy, a successful entrepreneur, fell into that trap.
Yes, and he uses it as a powerful lesson. It's a reminder that we often underestimate the cumulative impact of our daily choices, whether it's spending, eating, or even our time management. Casinos, for example, understand this principle incredibly well.
Casinos? How so?
Well, they track everything from the average bet size to the payout percentages of their slot machines, they know that even small margins, compounded over thousands of transactions, result in huge profits. It's the same principle at play, just on a different scale.
So we need to be like meticulous casino operators
Yeah.
when it comes to our own goals.
Not necessarily in the same way, but we can borrow that concept of awareness. Tracking our spending, our food intake, our progress on projects. It creates awareness. And awareness is the first step to making better choices.
Right. It's hard to change what you don't even acknowledge. But it's not just about eliminating negative habits, is it? What about building those positive ones?
That's where Hardy introduces an analogy that's a bit more visceral. He asks, have you ever been bitten by an elephant?
No. Can't say I have.
Of course not, but you've probably been bitten by a mosquito, right?
Oh, yeah. Those tiny things can be relentless.
Exactly. And that's Hardy's point. It's the small, persistent habits, like those pesky mosquitoes, that have the biggest impact over time. They might not seem like much individually, but their cumulative effect can either derail us or propel us forward.
So how do we start tackling those metaphorical mosquitoes and building positive habits?
Well, Hardy provides a framework for identifying those habits, both good and bad, using worksheet note 12 from his book. It's about taking an honest look at our current behaviors, without judgment, and deciding which ones are serving us and which ones we need to address.
So no sugarcoating or pretending we're perfect, right? Just getting real with ourselves.
Exactly. And once we've identified those habits, Hardy offers some practical strategies for making lasting changes, whether it's gradual adjustments, like slowly reducing caffeine intake, or going cold turkey if that suits your personality better. The key is finding a method that works for you.
It sounds like it's about finding that sweet spot.
Yeah.
Between pushing ourselves and being realistic about what we can sustain over time.
Exactly. And that brings us to another crucial concept from the book, momentum. Remember trying to push a merry-go-round as a kid?
Oh, yeah. Talk about a workout.
Yeah.
You push and push,
Yeah.
barely moving the thing.
Yeah.
Then suddenly it starts to gain speed, and before you know it, you're running alongside trying to keep up.
Haha, yeah. That's a perfect illustration of how momentum works with habit building. The initial effort can feel immense, like you're pushing against a brick wall. But as you stick with it, those small actions start to build momentum. And suddenly, maintaining those good habits becomes easier.
So it's like that saying, the hardest part is getting started.
Exactly. And Hardy provides some examples of this principle in action, from Michael Phelps's grueling training regimen to the consistent innovation that propelled companies like Apple and Google to success. They all harness the power of momentum, consistently pushing forward, building on their previous efforts.
Wow, so it's not just about starting, but about maintaining that forward momentum, even when things get tough. And I have a feeling consistency plays a big role in that, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And that's where we'll pick things up in the next part of our deep dive. We'll explore Hardy's insights on how to cultivate consistency, bookend our days with empowering routines, and ultimately accelerate our results.
I'm already feeling motivated. See you in part 2, listeners. Welcome back to our deep dive into the compound effect. We just explored how tiny choices can snowball into major life changes, both good and bad. And I'm really curious about this whole consistency thing. It's easy to say we'll be consistent, but actually doing it, that's another story.
You're right. Consistency is often the missing link between setting a goal and actually achieving it. It's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. And Hardy provides a great analogy to illustrate this, using an old-fashioned water pump.
Okay. I'm picturing like a creaky well pump, the kind you see in like old Western movies. What's the connection to habits?
Imagine you're trying to get water from that pump. At first you pump and pump, but nothing comes out. It's frustrating, right?
Yeah.
You might even be tempted to give up, thinking it's broken.
Oh, I'd definitely be questioning my life choices at that point.
But here's the thing. If you keep pumping, even though it seems like nothing's happening, eventually that water starts to flow. And once that flow starts, it's much easier to maintain. So it's like building that initial momentum we talked about earlier. You have to put in the work up front, even when you don't see immediate results, and trust that the payoff is coming.
Exactly. And this is where so many people falter with their goals. They give up too soon, right before the breakthrough. They go on a diet for a week, don't see dramatic results, and then abandon it entirely.
Yeah.
Or they start a new exercise routine, get sore, and decide it's not worth the effort.
It's like quitting on that water pump right before the water starts flowing. All that initial effort wasted.
Precisely. Consistency is what separates those who succeed with habits from those who don't. And it's not about being perfect, it's about showing up. even when you don't feel like it,
Oh.
even when you mess up.
Okay, so consistency is key. But is there anything we can do to accelerate our progress? I mean, everyone loves a shortcut.
Well, Hardy doesn't advocate for shortcuts, but he does talk about pushing beyond our comfort zones, going for those extra reps. Think about when you're at the gym, lifting weights, you hit your max reps, you're feeling the burn, and then you push for a few more, even though it hurts like crazy.
Exactly. That's where the real growth happens. When you push past your perceived limitations, and this concept applies to all areas of life. It's about going the extra mile at work, exceeding expectations, consistently striving to be just a little bit better.
So instead of just hitting send on that email, you take an extra 5 minutes to proofread it carefully. Or instead of just showing up for your friend's birthday dinner, you bake their favorite cake.
Precisely. It's those small, consistent actions that, compounded over time, create a significant difference. And it's not just about doing more, it's about being more mindful, more intentional.
So how do we create
Yeah.
that environment of consistent action? Hardy talks about the importance of routines, right? Especially bookending our days.
Yes, routines can be incredibly powerful, especially for busy people. They automate good choices, reduce decision fatigue, and free up mental energy for more important tasks. And bookending your day with specific morning and evening routines creates a structure that can keep you grounded, even amidst chaos.
It's like creating those bookends on a shelf, keeping all those books, or in this case, tasks and responsibilities, organized and in place.
Exactly. Hardy's a big advocate of morning rituals, and he shares his own routine in the book. It involves things like gratitude practice, visualization, light exercise, and reviewing his goals for the day. And in the evening, he winds down with a relaxing activity, disconnects from technology, and prepares for a restful sleep.
So even someone as busy and successful as Darren Hardy takes the time for these routines. It's a great reminder that these aren't just like fluffy self-care practices. They're strategic tools for success.
Exactly. It's about setting yourself up for success, both physically and mentally. And those routines can evolve over time, but the key is to find what works for you and stick with it.
But routines are just one part of the equation, right? Hardy also talks about the importance of our environment and the people we surround ourselves with.
He calls these our influences, and he breaks them down into 3 categories: input, associations, and environment.
Okay, let's unpack those. What does he mean by input?
Input refers to what we consume, the books we read, the shows we watch, the news we absorb, even the conversations we engage in. Hardy argues that we need to be just as mindful of our mental diet as we are of our physical diet.
So if we're constantly bombarded with negativity, doom scrolling through social media, or watching sensationalized news, it's going to have a negative impact on our mindset. Just like eating junk food all the time.
Precisely. Hardy advocates for a media diet, consciously choosing positive and uplifting content that supports our goals and values.
So swapping out that reality TV show for an inspiring documentary, or listening to a podcast that teaches you something new, I can get behind that.
And then there's the second influence, associations. This refers to the people we spend our time with. Hardy cites research suggesting that our social circle can determine up to 95% of our success.
Wow, 95%. That's a powerful statistic. So if we're surrounded by negative people, complainers, or those who don't support our goals, it's going to be much harder to break free from those patterns.
Absolutely. We tend to adopt the habits, beliefs, and even the financial patterns of those we associate with. It's like that saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
So it's not about ditching all our friends who aren't on the same self-improvement journey as us, but maybe being more intentional about who we spend our time with and the energy we allow into our lives.
Exactly. It's about seeking out those who inspire us, challenge us, and support our growth. Mentors, role models, even online communities of like-minded individuals can play a huge role.
And finally, we have the third influence, environment. This one seems a bit less obvious. How does our physical environment impact our success?
Well, think about it this way. If your workspace is cluttered and chaotic, it's going to be much harder to focus and be productive. If your kitchen is stocked with junk food, it's going to be more challenging to stick to healthy eating habits.
So it's about creating an environment that supports our goals, whether it's having a dedicated workspace, joining a gym, or surrounding ourselves with things that inspire us.
Exactly. Hardy even shares a personal story about how visualizing his dream home in an affluent community subconsciously influenced his actions and eventually led him to achieve that goal. Our environment has a powerful impact on our mindset and our choices.
So it's not just about willpower. and making those small changes, but also about creating an environment that supports those changes and surrounds us with positive influences.
Exactly. It's about setting ourselves up for success, both internally and externally. And that brings us back to the core message of the compound effect. Small, smart choices plus consistency plus time. Radical difference.
It's a powerful reminder that we have more control over our destinies than we often realize. It's not about finding some magic formula or overnight success hack, but about embracing the power of consistent, intentional action.
And that's where we'll leave things for now. In the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore some key takeaways from the book and how you can start applying these principles to your own life.
Starting today. I can't wait to get into that. See you in part 3, listeners. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the compound effect. I'm still buzzing from all the insights we've uncovered about tiny choices leading to big changes, but I have to admit it's a little daunting too. Where do we even begin putting all this into practice?
It is a lot to take in, but remember, you don't need to overhaul your entire life overnight. The beauty of the compound effect is that it's about making small, sustainable changes that add up over time.
Okay, that's reassuring. So what's the first step? Where do we start?
Hardy suggests starting with one specific area of your life that you want to improve. Don't try to tackle everything at once. Focus on one small habit, one goal, and make a plan to work on it consistently.
So if I wanted to improve my fitness, I wouldn't necessarily sign up for a marathon tomorrow, but maybe commit to like a 20-minute walk each day.
Exactly. Start small, build consistency, then gradually increase the intensity or duration as you gain momentum. It's about creating that positive feedback loop, experiencing small wins that keep you motivated.
I like that. It's not about deprivation or pushing yourself to the limit, but about creating a sustainable approach
That you can stick with for the long haul.
Exactly. And once you've identified that area of focus, revisit worksheet number 12, the one we discussed earlier for identifying habits. Really dig deep. And honestly, assess your current behaviors. Which habits are supporting your goals? And which ones are holding you back?
It's about facing those habit mosquitoes head on, right? And then deciding which ones to swat away and which new ones to invite in, so to speak.
That's a great way to put it. And once you've identified those habits, remember Hardy's advice for making the change. It might be gradual, like slowly replacing that afternoon soda with water, or more drastic, like going cold turkey on a bad habit. The key is finding a strategy that aligns with your personality and your goals.
So there's no one-size-fits-all approach. It's about self-awareness and finding what works best for you. Precisely. And this is where tracking can be incredibly helpful. Remember, what gets measured gets managed by tracking your progress. Whether it's using a habit tracker app, a journal, or a simple spreadsheet, you create that awareness, and awareness fuels motivation.
And I bet it also helps you catch those little slip-ups before they snowball into something bigger, right?
Absolutely. It's about course correction. We all stumble, we all have setbacks, but tracking helps you identify those patterns and make adjustments along the way.
Okay, so we've identified our focus, we're tracking our progress, and we're working on building those positive habits. What else can we do to maximize the compound effect?
Remember Hardy's 3 key influences: input, associations, and environment. These are like the ingredients that create the soil in which your habits grow. So make sure those ingredients are nourishing and supportive.
So being mindful of what we read, watch, and listen to, surrounding ourselves with positive, supportive people, and creating an environment that aligns with our goals.
Exactly. It's about creating that ecosystem for success. Swap out that negativity-filled newsfeed for inspiring podcasts or insightful books. Seek out mentors, connect with like-minded individuals, or join a group that supports your goals, and create a physical space that inspires and motivates you.
It sounds like it's not just about individual effort, but about leveraging the power of our surroundings and the people in our lives to support our growth.
Exactly. It's about harnessing the power of those influences, both big and small, to accelerate our progress and create a life that truly aligns with our values and aspirations.
And remember that powerful question Hardy poses. What if you committed to being just 1% better each day? Where would you be in a year?
It's a reminder that even small, seemingly insignificant improvements, when compounded over time, can lead to remarkable results. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. And as Hardy says, never underestimate the power of consistent daily action.
So listeners, what's one small step you can take today to be just 1% better? What's one habit you can start building? One positive influence you can add to your life? One small change you can make to your environment? Write it down, commit to it, and watch as the compound effect transforms your life, one day at a time.
And remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And those seemingly insignificant steps, taken consistently, can lead to extraordinary destinations.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the compound effect. We hope it's inspired you to embrace the power of small changes and embark on your own journey of growth and transformation.
And remember, the compound effect is always working, whether you're aware of it or not. The question is, are you going to harness its power and make it work for you?
Until next time, keep making those small, smart choices. Stay consistent and watch your life change for the better, one step at a time,